Today we're going to be talking about absolute value. In our number routine, tell us what you know about today's number. Write a real-life situation that today's number would represent. Where would you see this integer? Again, an integer is a whole number and its opposite, and it includes 0. So where would you see this? For example, maybe I go to the bank and I withdrew $6 from my checking account. Could be that one. Another example, it could be that a loss of 6 yards from a football game. Someone lost 6 pounds. A ship is 6 feet below sea level. So, or do now. The entrance of a cave is at an elevation of 14 feet. The lowest part of the cave is at an elevation of negative 86 meters. Generate an integer. An integer, again, is a positive or negative whole number that includes 0 to represent the elevation of the entrance to the cave. So the entrance of the cave is 14 meters. So it would be represented as positive 14 or 14. Either one is correct. So let's watch this video as soon as I can. Click.
Here's how to do it. Hey. Daniel? Yeah. How many miles did you say this thing had on it when we left? 126 and halfway through 3 and 4 pounds. Why? How many miles are on it now? Here's what camera goes specific.
So the question, so he was driving a car and the odometer, the mileage reader, was going up. Because in the backstory, they stole the car, joyriding, they stole the car from Cameron's father, and they didn't think the odometer, the mileage reader, would go up. So however, to solve it, if you drive in reverse, if you send the car backward, drive in reverse, will the odometer or mileage reader go forward or backward? What do you think? So if I drive backward, when I park backward, if I drive in reverse, will the mileage reader, will the miles go down? The answer is it will go forward because distance is always positive. When you are moving, the distance is always going up. You're never going back. You're always moving forward. So distance is always positive.
Miles aren't coming off. The miles aren't coming off going in reverse. Huh. Well, I thought that might be a problem. Just have to crack open the odometer, roll it back by hand.
So as you can tell, when they drove it in reverse, the miles kept going up because they are moving. When you are moving, distance is always continually with you, so it's positive. So the opposite of a number, so today we're going to be talking about opposite. The opposite of a number is just the number on the opposite side of 0 on the number line. For example, if we are at 5, this is 5 units from 0. On the opposite side, what is 5 units from 0? -5. If you are at -3, how many units is that from 0? 3 units. On the opposite side, what number is 3 units from 0? 3. What's the opposite of 0? Just 0. Let's write our example. What's the opposite of 10? That's 10 units from 0. So on the other side, it would be -10. So let's match the opposite. 34, positive 34. What's the opposite? It's 34 units from 0. So the other side will be -34. Opposite of -12 is positive 12. Opposite of -2, that's 2 units from 0, will be positive 2. The opposite of 64 unit is -64, and the opposite of -843 is positive 843. Absolute value is how, so today, our major word we're going to learn today is absolute value. Absolute value is how far a number is from 0 on the number line. It is noted with the absolute values such as these absolute value bars. So you will be given a number line. In your number line, you will have to decide how far is it from 0. So 7. How far is 7 from 0? Let me take out my, I'll use a highlighter. Well, I did highlight. Let's use the highlighter. We are 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 unit, 4 unit, 5 unit, 6 unit. We are 7 units from 0, so the distance is 7. What's the absolute value of -8? How far are we from 0? How many units are we from 0? 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 unit, 4 unit, 5 unit, 6 unit, 7, 8 units from 0. So the answer is 8. Absolute value of 7 is 7. Absolute value of -8 is 8. 2.5. How many units is this from 0? 1 unit, 2 unit, and a half. We are 2.5 units from 0. Do you notice a common, something similar about all these? Have you noticed distance is always positive? So, example, someone walked -3.5 steps backward. -1, starting 0. -1, -2, -3.5. What is the person's distance? 3.5 units from 0. 9/4. What would the distance of 9/4? We could keep it like this way, but do we know another way? Think of your 5th grade. This is what type of number is this? Or what type of fraction is this? An improper fraction. How many fours go into 9? 2 wholes. You have 1 left over. So another way to say it is 2 1/4. So we are 2 1/4 units from 0, or 2 1/4, or 9/4. And last but not least, if we are at 6 and we go back, so we go 6 units from 0, then they ask us to go back 8 units. So we are at -2. What is the absolute value of -2? How far is -2 from 0? 2 units. So our last thing we're going to talk about, is probably the most difficult of all, is what happens if you have a negative sign on the outside of the absolute value bar. What does that mean? What does that negative mean? We're going to be talking about this many, many different times, especially when we do adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing integers. The negative here means the opposite of. So it's saying, what is the opposite of the absolute value of 8? So let's find 8, the absolute value of 8. How far is 8 from 0? It is 8 units. But the negative mean here, what's the opposite of 8? So what's on the other side of 8? -8. So the negative on the outside of the absolute value bar is telling you the opposite of. So what is the opposite of the absolute value of 5? How far is 5 from 0? 5. What's the opposite of 5? -5. So -4. What is the absolute value of -4? How far is -4 from 0? It is 4 units from 0. Negative here means what's the opposite of that 4? -4. 3 plus, what's the opposite of 3 plus 4? 3 plus 4 is 7. How far is 7 from 0? 7 units. Opposite of 7 is -7. And last but not least, what's the absolute value of -8? -8 is right here. How far is -8 from 0? 8 units. Opposite of it, -8. So last thing we're going to talk about is given two integers such as 3 and -1, how do you know which integer is greater? You might say, well, 3 is bigger than -1, but how do you know that? For example, how do you know 8 is greater than 6? How do you know that? Just say, oh, I have 8 apples and 6 apples. 8 apples are more than 6 apples. Okay, what about -4 and -6? So, did you know a number line is built from least to greatest? You go from least all the to greatest. So the greater numbers are always to the right. For example, 8 is to the right of 6, so 8 is greater than 6. 6 is greater than 3. 6 is to the right of 3. 3 is to the right of -1, so 3 is greater than -1. -1 is to the right of -4, so -1 is greater than -4. Because I hear a lot of kids always say, oh, it's the number that's farthest from 0. Okay, fine. -6 and 3, which one's greater? Well, -6 is farther than 0, so -6 must be larger. So the way to correct that is say whichever number is to the right on the number line is to the right of the other integer. So 3 is greater. So let's practice our inequalities. 3 is greater than -1. 3 is more than -1. -1 is more than -4. -1 is right. -4 is greater than -6. What if you're given two numbers like this, -9 and -2? Which number is greater? See, let's get a number line. -9, -2. -2 is to the right, so -2 must be greater. So -2 is greater. This is how I learned it. I used to be a teacher elementary. Greater side gets 2 dot, smaller side gets 1 dot. So -9 is less than -2, or you could say -2 is greater than -9. So in today's study, we talk about absolute value. Absolute value is the distance from 0. It's how many units from 0. However, if you have a negative sign, like such as this, in front of the absolute value, it's saying what is the opposite of that distance from 0. And last thing we talk about, how do you can tell which integer is larger? You look for the number to the right